even the rebound is in fact greater if you're not regulated, if you're not in a regulated industry. So, conclusions. So what have we taken away from this study, and what are some of the main findings? I think what this study is telling us is that government's investments in private equity is challenging some of the existing norms in those host countries and creating policy uncertainty for their home country's firms, even though this uncertainty is reduced as investments grow in size. And firms respond to such uncertainty by lowering their equity stakes in host country targets, and by doing that, they are preemptively trying to stay below the radar. We find that government-owned acquirers are less affected, but acquisitions in more regulated targets are affected by potential negative spillovers. Okay. So in terms of theoretical contributions, I think the study contributes to the general literature on state capitalism. There's been a rebound in this literature thanks to developments such as sovereign wealth funds. We're seeing more work suddenly now coming into the fray on national government as a foreign investor. What does this mean for host countries, the global economy, for their industries? What might be the negative or positive externalities? And I think this points to this interesting, to me it's kind of interesting that we think of the government as being this, creator of welfare for their firms, in terms of helping firms. But in fact, what we're seeing here is that firms really have to duck to be able to not, get, engulfed in the controversies that their government's investments are surrounded by. We're also contributing to this recent literature on category theory, which is really an offshoot of population ecology and institutional theory. And I think we're showing that there are different ways to categorize organizations, and nationality is one of them. And that nationality is going to lead to both positive and negative spillovers. And this, I think, insight is important because some of the recent literature on multinationals has questioned whether multinationals actually have a nationality, right? Or if they are now, stateless actors who are not really embedded in any one particular context or country. And here we're seeing that nationality actually matters for multinational firms. We're also seeing that firms respond to this kind of categorization. So even though the prior studies have shown that there is this kind of categorization that punishes firms, right? And this research has been done in the context of environmental accidents, for instance. We're seeing here that firms actually recognize these possibilities of negative spillovers because of categorization and respond to them proactively by keeping a low profile, especially in highly regulated industries. What are the policy implications? Since I'm in a policy school, I better have something to say about policy implications. So I have 2 points here in terms of policy.
Not necessary, but it's a big plus.
Yeah, so that I'm invited again, right? No, I just wanted to kind of, I'm not a policy expert. I have worked in policy analysis in Washington for some years in the energy and environmental sector. But I think these are some questions that you folks who are, people studying and thinking about policy issues may want to, ponder about. And, if you have some good ideas, I'd love to discuss them. So, do we need policies that help us overcome this political anxiety that surrounds sovereign wealth funds? And I think we do. We do need to come up with a solution so that we are, not scaring these firms off. We're also going to see, I think, the sovereign wealth funds themselves respond, as we have seen in the case of the Norwegians, where some people have thought about the responsible investment focus as being a red herring, in terms of distracting the audiences away from what they're actually doing, and which is becoming more activist in the governance of firms. We might find sovereign wealth funds use smoke screens. So, like the Chinese have had some talks about using US investment banks like Goldman Sachs to manage their entire investment portfolio, which again, they'll be doing the exact same thing, but it will be done indirectly through a broker. It would be done through an intermediary, and that smokescreen may then again mislead audiences. So the point here being that the sovereign wealth funds are not going to sit around passively if there is so much of brickbats and so much criticism being thrown at them. They're going to be doing things which may become then harder for us to detect exactly what they're up to. And last but not the least, as this paper has shown, all this anxiety might crowd out the private investments from these sovereign investors' countries, and I think that could be detrimental not only to their private industries but also lead to certain losses on the side of the host country recipients. So I'm going to stop here. Thank you very much.
Pranita, very much. We have time for a couple of questions. We always end right at 2. Yes, please.
Yeah, I have a question. So if my understanding is correct, so your research was focused on mainly portfolio investments made by Norwegian fund, right? But I just wonder if you also looked at foreign direct investments, because it's, I'm just giving an example from my country. First, we don't have a very much developed capital market, and there is no much portfolio investments. And so the main, and we have Norwegians, who invest in oil and gas sector, and the main form of investments of cooperation is through product sharing agreements, so which is considered like FDI. And I just wonder if you looked, because I think FDI, if you will look at FDI, you will not have such kind of negative correlation between as you had them.
Well, a lot of these investments are 100% acquisitions, and a lot of these investments increase. So OECD's definition of FDI is, any investment which increases 10% is considered to be,
like equity.
FDI. Yeah.
So that's usually enough for ownership or for control.
For control, yeah. So I don't know if that's what you're getting at, because we have all those investments, all those types of investments included in this sample of acquisition.
And another comment is just, you mentioned that it's for democratic, non-democratic. So this scheme is looking government investments is more and representing government interests in other recipients countries. It's more it's common for non-democratic countries. But I just again from my country's experience, so we have a lot of intergovernmental agreements with democratic countries like US, and all these agreements is about how to promote their own companies. What point I want to make is, anyway, we have the government when it concludes some kind of cooperation agreements, they try to promote the interests of their own corporations or of companies.
Yeah,
so
and so that, so two wrongs don't make it right, or I don't know if that's how the saying goes. I think you're absolutely right. I think economics and politics are very closely intertwined, and it's not like the US makes investments in other countries with no political objectives in mind. Having said that, I think they don't like being the target of similar behavior by non-democratic countries and by sovereign investors. So, And I think, I mean, there are those types of agreements, but I don't know how far they go in terms of, you know, trying to change the corporate governance practices, or, you know, trying to become activist investors in those host countries. So yes, I mean, this also works in the other direction, absolutely.
Well, thank you again, Carlita, and I would like to invite all of you to come back in 2 weeks' time, something completely different. Professor Kathleen Collins from the Political Science Department is going to be talking about Muslim Eurasia, which is a tremendously interesting area, and she's one of the country's leading authorities on this part of the world. So please come back. It's 2 weeks from today. And thanks again.